All right. So I get this question a lot. What is the difference between a peptide and a hormone? Because people talk about, well, testosterone's a hormone, and I don't want to do that one, but peptides are okay. There's a couple different differences, and the big ones are really, really important for people who are using them like me. At the end chain, they're not super important for other people. So the real big difference between a peptide and a hormone is where you are in the chain of function. So, for instance, if you activate the end of the chain, everything before that starts getting blocked. So, for instance, let's look at production of testosterone and sperm in men. So, what ends up happening is that there's initiation from the hypothalamus in the brain. It goes to the pituitary, also in the brain. Pituitary releases LH and FSH. Those go down to the testicles, and they produce testosterone. And they produce sperm. Cool. What ends up happening is that if you give somebody testosterone and they have a higher level of testosterone, the body reads how much testosterone it has and goes, "Whoa, we've been way overproducing this," or man, we are good on testosterone. We don't need to make any more testosterone, and so it stops the entire chain. So you don't produce LH, you don't produce FSH. The brain is not producing all these things. You're shutting off the body. You're telling the body that it doesn't need to make any more of this. And so what ends up happening is that you don't produce testosterone and you don't produce sperm. So that's what happens with testosterone. So if you use something higher up in the chain, like let's say that you were giving the body the hormone, the HCG, that the hypothalamus produces. That would then go to the pituitary, tell the pituitary to make LH and FSH. LH and FSH would come down and would increase fertility and increase testosterone. Similar but different. HCG doesn't actually do this in men, but similar to what HCG does and similar to what like enclomiphene does, which is fantastic. That's awesome if you're going for fertility. So like a lot of guys come in who are 22, 23, 20, and we pull their testosterone, they're 185, 200, 220, which is like I can't remember the last 20 something year old that I pulled blood on who had testosterone levels above like 400. Like they're all really low. And we can get into why that is a different time. And so what you have to ask that guy is, they're like, hey, my medical doctor's telling me that I should get on enclomiphene. And I'm like, enclomiphene will 100% work. No argument. HCG will work. No argument. It definitely will bring up your testosterone for sure. And then I go, however, it will also bring up your fertility. And the reason I always tell them this is because I had the same issue when I was in my early 20s. My testosterone was 185. And again, we can get into that reason later, mostly because of sleep apnea and stress and poor food and head trauma and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so mine was really low. And so I had the option too. Do I take HCG, bring my testosterone up, and bring up my fertility at 20? Or do I take testosterone and only bring up my testosterone and suppress fertility? So I chose that. I chose to take testosterone so that I would not be fertile, so I wouldn't have an oopsie baby. And then once I got married and it was time to have kids, I got off the testosterone, got on HCG and some other things to increase fertility, brought my fertility up, had my 2 kids, got off of that, got back on testosterone. So this is one of those things that where are you in this chain, right? So again, like I said, most people, this doesn't matter to. You come in, you're like, I want more testosterone. And I go, cool. Do you want fertility too? And you go, absolutely not. I'm like, here's testosterone. If you go, oh yeah, like fertility is my big thing, we're going to give you something different. Enclomiphene, HCG, HMB, something like that. So it depends on where in the chain you are and how you want to activate things and what you want things to do. A lot of times between using peptides and using other things. So that's the real big piece, is where in the chain you're doing this. Are you taking the in-chain synthetic hormone, or are you giving your body a primary peptide that starts activation of the entirety of the chain? So it just kind of depends on what your goals are. And this is the big thing, because people are always like, well, should I take this or take that or do this diet? And I'm like, what are your goals? what are you trying to do? We can make the body do pretty much whatever we want it to do. It's just, where are we trying to go? And if you haven't fleshed that out, that's pretty important. There's a lot of people, like I said, like the vast majority of the things I do that are fun are helping people figure out what they actually want. Like, what are your goals? I don't know. People come in all the time. I want to be healthy. I'm like, that's awesome. What does that mean to you? What does healthy mean to you? Healthy means something different to a lot of different people. And so if I'm just like, all right, cool, I'm going to make you healthy to the definition that I have of healthy, most people are not going to, they're not going to want to work that hard. They're not going to want to do that stuff. It's way too much of a change for their lifestyle. But if someone's like, man, I want to be healthy, and I'm like, cool, what's that mean to you? And they're like, I want to work out like 30 minutes twice a week, and I want to, drink more water, and I want to cut out some of the processed foods. Cool. If that's where you are, that's where your goals are, cool. We can start there. That's easy peasy. If you come in and you're like, I'm a big fat guy and I want to be I want to be on stage in 2 years. Cool. That's a gigantic goal, and we can chop it up and we can meet that. That's fantastic. I just need to know where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to figure out where you're going to do peptides or hormones or where you're going to go, what you're going to do, the primary thing is you got to figure out, what are your goals? And maybe you should, this is why you want to work with somebody, because people come in all the time and they're like, I want more testosterone. I'm like, do you want testosterone and fertility? And they're like, I didn't know that was an option. I'm like, of course it is. It just depends on where in the chain we're going to work on it. So that's one of the major issues. The other stuff is like, well, a peptide is usually a smaller chain, and multiple peptides make up hormones. Okay, like chemical structure and chemical size, and where they're produced and how they're produced is not, I don't think is as well. We can get into that. Like, if you guys are chemistry nerds like I am, you'll love it. If you're not, you'll hate it. So you want to listen to it. But that's the real thing. That's the real thing you need to understand about peptides is, where in the chain are we activating these things? So, in this case, like, if you talk about semaglutide being a peptide, in that case, semaglutide works a lot more like a hormone than it does a peptide, because it activates receptor sites. So it's kind of an in-chain thing, but it doesn't necessarily suppress natural production and function. So size is really the big thing on the semaglutide type of stuff. And we figured out a lot more function in that. So the semaglutide stuff, the new retarditide stuff is pretty important. Oh, that's a fantastic question. How important is it made in America for peptides? Not. I mean, this gets into the question of how important is the FDA. Like, go back and look at what the FDA said. The FDA is not really on the side of right very often. The FDA is the one who told us that, as long as we bought opioids from them, we would be okay. Like, oh, they're not addictive as long as you get the ones from the pharmaceutical groups. That was a lie. They told us that Lucky Charms is better for you than steak. They told us that cholesterol is what's causing heart attacks. They told us that SSRIs were going to end depression. So nothing they've ever really said has been beneficial. So give them whatever credit you want to give them, and understand that the vast majority of all the pharmaceuticals we use in this country are not made in this country. They're actually made in Thailand. They're made they're almost all made with substrates from other countries. So a lot of the stuff that you're getting is coming from China, which is funny because, like, I know, because I'm in the industry and I know guys who are doing all sorts of different stuff. A lot of the stuff that you're getting from a pharmacy is the exact same precursor stuff that a lot of these underground illegal labs are getting their same stuff. So it comes in like these big containers of like powdered testosterone, and they just take it and they mix it with oil, and then that's it. And so, like, all of the chemistry that's being done isn't being done in this country. The mixing powder with oil and then sticking a vial topper on it and handing it to you, that's being done here, but the rest of it's all being pulled in from other places. So the peptide stuff is all the same thing. Peptides work's being done elsewhere. A lot of it is done by machine. It has not been done by, guys sitting in the back with test tubes and chemistry. It is all, it's all industrialized. So we need this much of this heated to this exact temperature, mixed like this for this long, mixed with this, and then dried into powder. There you go. And that's most of the time that's done by machines, not guys in lab coats. So most of the stuff is not made here. So that's the other big thing is, people come in and are like, well, I really want something that's FDA approved. I don't want to take any of the research peptides. I only want to take stuff that's FDA approved. The substrates are coming from the same exact place. It's just one paid off the government and pays them all of their fees so that they can be FDA approved, and then the other one doesn't. And that's really where a lot of the distinction is. In fact, I would tell you that the vast majority of the high-end research groups are better because they're cheaper, they're faster, and they have more access to stuff than the pharmaceutical groups. And I work with both. I work with pharmacies, and I work with guys who are doing this underground. And I can tell you that the stuff from underground is all I take. So that's that's where a lot of this stuff is, because you can't get the mixes, you can't get you can't get a lot of the stuff that you really want from any of the pharmacies. Some of the compounding pharmacies will do it for about 40%, 30 to 40% more. And it's pre-mixed. And the problem with pre-mixed is that if it comes mixed, it's degrading as it's sitting there. If it's still in powder form, it's not degrading, and so you can hold it for a little bit longer. So I would never get like 6 months or a year's worth of peptides from a pharmacy. I would, you can do that from some of the research groups because they're still in powder form. But that's kind of a here or there thing on it. Also, this kind of goes back and forth a little bit on it. I am a bigger fan of using peptides for your body to create its own natural growth hormones. So like Smorelin, Ipamorelin, Tesamorelin, even CJC, I'm a bigger fan of using those for growth hormone function than I am for using human growth hormone. Couple of different reasons. I like your body to make your own stuff. I think that the stuff that your body makes is better for your receptors and better for your function. And I think it's overall safer than using a pharmaceutical version of that hormone. So, and that's me. I don't have a giant amount of research between, like, for instance, I like Smorelin, Ipamorelin. I don't have a gigantic amount of research that's like, oh, if you take Smorelin, Ipamorelin, it does all of these things, but if you take HGH, it does all of these things. There's not a whole lot of that. It's just what I've seen working with pro bodybuilders and working with people who were taking a lot of synthetic HGH versus people who were taking a lot of like Smorelin and Ipamorelin. And you can get your levels pretty high with Smorelin and Ipamorelin. Like I tell everybody, when I was doing my peptides, before I wanted to tell everybody, like, hey, you can use these, I went and tested them. And so I've been taking them for a while, and they were amazing. Got my injuries just went straight up away. My workouts went through the roof. My muscle creation, my fat burn was amazing. And I was like, I wonder how good these things are. If these things are really working, or if it's just placebo. So I took a shot, and I went to the lab right after I took my shot. I think I got my blood pulled like maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour after I took it, because, taking the shot, driving over there, the whole deal. And these growth hormone levels are between 0 and 10. Mine was 54. So definitely going to get some boost out of it. You can regulate it however you want to in there, but did great. And I will tell you that when somebody has a broken arm or broken leg, or like we talked about lots of times with Rachel's face, when she took the fade baseball and broke her whole, actually it's this whole side of her face, and they thought she was going to lose her eye, and they thought that she'd never smile again. And they had to have surgery to put all the bones back together. We gave her a whole bunch of growth hormone peptides, and it regrew her face, and you can't even tell now. We've had guys come in with injuries to shoulders and elbows and stuff like that they've had for a long, long time. And we gave them the Smorelin, and like 3-4 weeks later, they're like, man, this feels so much better. Again, it's healing. And this is why BPC 157 and TB 500 work so well, is because what they're actually doing is they're increasing your body's affinity for growth hormone, or basically they're making the growth hormone you already have substantially more effective, which is why if you have an injury, especially like let's say we have an athlete who's injured and we're trying to get them ready for season, right? It was like, hey, we got 2 months left, and this is a pretty bad injury. I'll use BP 157, TB 500, Smorelin as a stack because I want to increase the natural production of growth hormone, and then I want to increase not only the effectiveness, I want to increase the body's usability of that hormone, but I also wanted to give it the structure, because like BP 157 and TB 500 also have the benefit of being kind of like the scaffolding around which healing happens. So those are some of the things I like to use those for. But again, it's what are your goals, right? Because if you come in here and you're like, hey man, I really want to lose some fat. I'm like, cool. How do you feel? Man, I feel awesome. Everything feels great. I'm probably not going to use 157 and TB 500. We could probably still use some, some more like Moreland. That's going to be more of a, hey, where's your testosterone? Where's your diet type of thing? Because again, goals. Because I don't care what you take. You can take all the steroids you want to. If you have a trash diet, you're not going to get where you want to go. And so when we're talking about fat loss, the primary thing we got to do is be like, okay, what are you eating? First of all, what's the macro set? What's the hormonal function that's coming off of the foods you're eating? Again, calories make zero difference. But what is the actual hormonal function from the macros you're eating? That's primary. And then secondary is what are the hormones you have to then do things with that once you've consumed those foods. So that's kind of how that goes. So that's kind of the real thing between peptides and hormones. They both have really, really, really awesome functions. It just depends on what you're trying to get the body to do. Should you use both at the same time? Absolutely. If it fits your goals. Should you just use one over the other? Depends on your goals. But you can. So if you guys have any other questions, or you guys are looking to get all that set up, give us a call. We'll be able to walk you through it, give you some ideas and that type of stuff. So if you guys, hit some of the DMs, that type of thing, have a great day. Thanks for your time. Share this with whoever you think it needs to hear it.